Good evening. Welcome to On Another Level Book Club's Author Babble, where we're getting up close and personal with author Britney A. Hill. She's the author of 30 and Single. Miss Hill, welcome and thank you for joining us on this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Brittany Hill. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a doctoral student where I am studying at Liberty University, majoring in community care and counseling with a focus in traumatology.
Mhm.
I work with mental health, substance abuse, and crisis clients currently. And this is my last year of my doctoral program.
Congratulations. It's a lot of hard work.
Yes,
So is this your first novel or have you written before?
this is my first book.
It is. So, what
Yes.
led up to you writing this book, 30 and Single?
So I would have to start with this was something that God laid on my heart to do. But also it was pretty much a testimony, my testimony of being 30 and not yet married. It was my testimony, but also from hearing from a lot of singles who are not okay with not being married at the age of 30. So in this book, I just kind of share my journey of how I learned to accept not being married at 30, but still learning how to enjoy life, how to learn to love myself, learning myself, healing from past hurts. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share my testimony to help other people to be able to enjoy this journey and know that singleness is important, and that it's very beneficial and is necessary. It's a necessary season and journey that we all need to go through before being married.
I love that you said it's a necessary season and journey, because we see people all the time getting married at a young age, and then sooner or later they start growing apart
Yeah,
because they don't know themselves.
exactly.
So, in writing this book, what are some things that you learned about yourself and looking at your experience as a single woman at the age of 30?
So I think even well, I will say while writing, but even after writing,
Mm-hmm.
but before publishing, I learned that there were a lot of areas in my life that I needed to heal from
Mm-hmm.
before I could move forward in my journey. Before marriage, but I also learned a lot about myself. I learned what love is. I learned what love looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that I needed to be able to do these things and learn these things before I even thought about being in another relationship,
Mm-hmm.
not only marriage, but even just being with someone else. So some things that I had issues with was the first chapter talks about your fantasies and your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that even at a young age, like probably like 10, 12 years old, I had my whole life planned out. I wanted to be married by the age of 25. And I had all these plans of being a pediatrician. I wanted this huge house. But one thing that I learned while writing the book was I never took into account like vacations and getting to know myself and different things that are necessary during that season. It was just kind of like I had this rush life of soon as I graduate from college, I want to get married. Soon as I get married, I want to have kids. Soon as I have kids, I want to have this big lavish life.
Mm-hmm.
But what about getting to know myself? What about taking vacations? What about exploring? So all those things. So I had to take a step back and
Mm-hmm.
realize that I'm not only grateful that that didn't happen, but I'm grateful that I had this season of singleness where I was able to learn about myself and heal from past traumas. Because it's also like family things. We grow up especially people who look like us, we grow up in communities where whatever happens in our homes has to stay in our homes. But
Exactly.
how is that beneficial? Being a licensed therapist, we know that you have to be able to process. You have to be able to talk about your past hurt. You have to be able to confront those issues and even those people who have hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are important things that even as a child, when I was planning out my life, and thinking that I was going to be married at 25, that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize those are important steps that I have to also take.
So true. So true. So, what role do you think the media played in what you perceived your future plans were as a young child?
Cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
even Barbie. Okay, so one character that I talk about in the book is Barbie.
Okay.
Barbie had Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie was a doctor. Barbie was a nurse. Barbie had this huge house.
Right.
Barbie had an RV. I had everything Barbie. And even though it allowed me to fantasize and dream of the possibilities that I can have as an adult, it
Mm-hmm.
also put those expectations in my heart that it would become easy for me.
Right.
And that's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so you watch these cartoons, The Princess and the Frog, and you think that Prince Charming is going to come just that easy. That's not reality.
Right.
That's not how life goes. You know, you may go through some relationships that may hurt you. You may go through some relationships that may teach you some things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all a part of the journey. It doesn't mean that, you know, those are bad things.
Mm-hmm.
But finding that Prince Charming isn't going to be that easy.
Exactly, honey.
But that's what cartoons and, you
Exactly.
know, toys that we're taught and we're given, that's what it teaches us.
Mm-hmm. So, to our viewing audience, what are some things that we can do um, to sort of be proactive when we're raising children so they're not given that false perception of what quote unquote life should be?
So I characterize myself as a reality therapist. I am very real. And one of the things that I very much appreciate is my aunt. One of my aunts was very real with me
Mm-hmm.
about life. And so I would say, even as a parent, me being a parent one day is hoping to be real and honest with my children
Mm-hmm.
about the realities of life, letting them know that although this is what you may be watching on TV, and
Mm-hmm.
although this is the toy that you may be playing with, I
Right.
want to help you to realize that things in life may not come this easy. You know, when it comes to being a doctor, when it comes to maybe being a teacher, there are going to be some things that you're going to have to go through in order to succeed that goal. And
Right.
sometimes you may feel like you may not want to do it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the next
Right.
day. But in your heart, if this is something that you really want to do, find that motivation that's going to keep you pressing forward. And that's something that I also tell my little sister, you know, when it comes to being a nurse, find the motivation that's going to keep you moving forward. You know, nobody can tell you you're going to be this or you're going to do this or you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find that motivation within yourself that's going to keep you moving forward.
Yeah, in supporting educators in the classroom, that's one question I always ask teachers, especially when they're stressed and, ready to pull their hair out. My thing is
Mm-hmm.
always remember your why. Have a
Yes.
reason why you came into this profession. And if it's from the heart, if this is where you're supposed to be, if you ask yourself in difficult times, what is your why? That's going to
Mm-hmm.
rejuvenate you right there.
Exactly. Yep.
So let's talk about the writing process. Now, this is your first book.
Yes.
How was your experience? Okay. I mean, I know you had to go through publishing and
Mm-hmm.
editing and all of that. Tell us about your experience being a new writer.
So I started writing. I used to live in Norfolk, Virginia. So I started writing when I moved back home in 2017. So I just published last year. So the writing process wasn't that difficult. The
Mm-hmm.
publishing process wasn't as promising, but it got me through.
Mm-hmm.
It got me through. And it was a learning experience. I learned a lot through that process, although it wasn't as pleasing as I would have hoped it to be. I learned a lot through that process that will help me if I decide to write another book.
Oh, you said if. So the
Yeah.
next question was, do we have anything else? Well, you know what? You got a lot on your plate right now.
Yes.
So I'm gonna give you a little grace. Okay.
Yes.
But when
Yeah.
you rest up, come on now.
I do have some ideas, but it won't be until after I finish
I
school.
understand that. I understand. Have you considered even maybe doing some workshops on the topic?
I
Okay.
have, and those are ideas. It's like I have so many ideas of what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just timing, because I really want to push and I want to encourage not only young women but also men
Right.
that this is a season that's necessary. This is a season that you can enjoy. That this is a season that you can have fun with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very
Yes.
beneficial. And so I it hurts my heart when I see other people, you know, who struggle through the season. And I can relate to it because I used to be there, but I had to learn to appreciate the season.
Right. Right.
So yes, I would love to do workshops and other things related to this topic. Yes.
So I'm thinking. I'm just thinking. You know what? I'm gonna leave this seed planted here but I'll get with you because I got something in mind. I got something in mind.
Okay.
So again, how long? You said it took you about a year to write the book?
So I started in 2017, so that's
Okay.
3 years.
Okay. So what type of feedback have you received, reviews from the book?
So I received a lot of good feedback. A lot
Mhm.
of people who could relate to my story of how they, feel
Mhm.
about being single and 30. A lot of people who also relate to the topic of fantasies and dreams of how they thought their life was going to be this particular way and it didn't turn out that way. But a lot of people have also related to the healing process. I have a whole chapter on healing and the importance of, healing from past trauma and past issues before moving on to relationships and then marriage.
Now, I'm sure some things you've hit in the book was kind of sensitive,
Mhm.
especially to family members, because I mean, I do understand that a lot of the things we experience as a young people kind of shape and mold our mind frame. What
Yeah.
type of feedback have you received from your family members, and if you've divulged any information that may have been kind of sensitive?
Yeah. So one of the key things that I received from my grandma, and I think I'll always remember it, is I talk about my relationship with my dad in my book.
Hmm.
We're on good terms now, thank God. We
Okay.
are doing good. We're moving in a positive direction now. But
Hmm.
one of the topics was about my dad and having to heal through that process, and how it affected my relationships with other men.
Hmm.
And so I had a conversation with my grandma, and one of the things that she said was, I wasn't sure if your dad was going to be okay with that
Right.
chapter, but she told me, she said, I had to realize that this was your perspective. This is how you felt at that moment in your life. And I appreciate that conversation. I appreciate it so much because it is nervous writing about, different things that may have happened in your life and being so transparent.
Right.
But the transparency, the goal of the transparency was to allow people to see that these things happen,
Right.
and that they can be relatable, and that these things do affect you. Your relationship with your parents, whether it's your father or your mother, they can affect you in your relationships when you move on to trying to find a partner.
Right, right. And then the big thing about it is like, it's all about perspective. This
It
was an
is.
opportunity for your dad to get to know you, how
Yeah,
you felt about the situation, and he could either accept it and grow from it or
exactly.
run from it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, very impressive. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask you to share with our viewing audience where you can be contacted and also where can they purchase your book.
Okay. So you can purchase my book on Amazon. It is also at Walmart. It is also in Barnes and Noble. It is recently at South Park Mall,
Oh,
as well in Italia's um, clothing store. And so that's where you can purchase it. If you want a signed copy, you can purchase it on www.womenlovingwomenllc.com. And if you are on my Facebook page, you can just click the link, and that link will carry you to all of these sites to purchase it.
okay. I love the cover. So
Thank you.
tell us about your marketing strategy. As an author, first time author, what do you
Mhm.
think is the best marketing strategy in trying to get your book and yourself out there? And what have you used in order to market your book?
So one of the things that I'll share is one of the things that my cousin shared with me is make them get tired of you. So Facebook, I use Amazon marketing as well, Instagram, social media. I've done a lot of interviews, so just trying to get to know other people. Facebook groups where there are local authors as well, so trying to get into those groups and joining different interviews and different community activities where I can market my book as well. So just trying to get my name out there, trying to network and meet other authors as well. But not only other authors, but other people who are willing to listen
Mhm.
and who may be interested in reading my book.
Okay, great, great, great. So let's go out and get the book, purchase the book, and also leave your reviews. Every year, every week, we
Yes.
try to stress the reviews. Make sure
Yeah.
you leave the reviews for the book. Okay, so at this time, we're going to transition just a little. Okay. Um, I'm going to ask you a few questions. This is called this or that. Okay. So I'm going to give you
Okay.
two options. And the first thing that comes to your mind, you tell me what your preference is. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Let's see. Computer games or video games?
Computer games.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Oh, here's a good one. Coca-Cola or Pepsi?
Coca-Cola, because that's what my grandma loved.
Oh, mine's too. She loved it. Um,
Yes.
pancake or waffles?
Waffles.
Okay. Um, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix, definitely.
Okay. Hmm. One last one. Let me think of a good one. Singing or dancing?
Dancing.
And I should have said before I asked the question that you actually have to do that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I just thought I'd throw that one in.
Yeah, I'm not going to embarrass myself. Not today.
Okay, so at this time, we've been taking questions from our viewing audience. I'm going to
Okay.
call in our voice of reason, and she's going to entertain questions from our audience.
Okay.
Voice of reason, are you there? Now,
I
if I call her
am.
by her name, she's gonna.
No, I am. Stop it. I am here.
Hello, voice of reason.
Hello. No, just kidding. Can you hear me?
Now
Yes.
we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, awesome. 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 Okay, we have looks like we do have one question so far. It says, any tips for taking the leap from writing to publishing? Good question.
Hmm.
And that's Parker.
Let's see. Any tips? Have faith.
That's a good one.
I would say that my leap was just kind of being obedient to what God was asking me to do in that moment.
Mhm.
And not thinking too much about the process. So I reached out to a publisher. I found out what it is that I needed to do, not thinking too much about the process. I had already written my manuscript and I just submitted it. So don't think too much about it. If you know this is what you need to do, just do it.
Mhm.
Great answer. Let's see here. Okay.
Any other questions?
They're coming in slowly. Here's another. What kind of schedule did you set for yourself for writing the book? And that's from Wendy.
It's a good question. So I started writing in 2017, not knowing that this was going to actually be a book. I
Oh.
started it as kind of journal entries. And so I am probably not the typical writer because I just kind of wrote as I felt led during that time. And so that's probably why it took me so long to publish because it took 3 years. And so during that time, I wrote as I felt led. A lot of people that I've spoken to in the past has been, set a schedule, even if it's writing once a week, and writing a chapter maybe once a week or writing a page once a week. Something that fits your schedule is what I would recommend.
Awesome.
Good advice.
We have another question from Tia Gregory. Will there be a sequel? Do you have more advice or insight for being single at 30?
So I've thought of a sequel, but that would have to be when my husband comes, and maybe we will think of writing a book together. Any advice or insight for being single? Yes. My advice would be to take yourself out on dates.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's eating, whether or not it's going to the movies, things are opening up now. So get to know yourself. That would be my number one advice. Get to know who you are. You can't offer or give anything to anybody unless you know who you are. You can't expect things unless you know who you are as well. Another thing is you can't expect someone to love you if you don't know how to love yourself. You can't expect somebody to respect you if you don't respect yourself. You can't expect these different things if you don't know these things yourself. So get to know yourself, learn to love yourself, learn to respect yourself, learn how to carry yourself, whether or not it's as a woman or a man, in a respectful manner. Take vacations, learn different hobbies, everything. I was so involved in, and still am, but so involved in different things. I was single when I started going back to school. This is something that I wanted to do. And I was like, this is a great opportunity. So get to know yourself and get to loving yourself and doing the things that you want to do. Because once you get married, you'll be having to ask for permission.
Girl,
Okay,
permission.
so we have another question from Felicity Morris. How did you get over the fear of what people would think?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily got over the fear. Um, I would say that I just kind of say that this was necessary and this is what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was still nervous about how people would receive it. But I think honestly, after having that conversation with my grandmother that I spoke about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that really helped me to kind of release that nervousness. Because it seemed like regardless of what anybody else thought, once we had that conversation, everything was okay.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
All right. Letitia, I think I'm pronouncing Letitia. What advice do you have for an individual that would like to make the decision to be single and not date for a season? How do you decide how long that season should be?
So that's my aunt, and she knows. So in my book, I also talk about the year that I decided not to date.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a year that God asked me not to date for an entire year. It was a leap year, so it was 366 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not date for that entire year. So that decision was just kind of me being obedient to what God
Mm-hmm.
was asking me to do. But another reason that I would suggest it is if you feel like you are being overconsumed by wanting to be in a relationship,
Yeah.
or you don't, or you feel like whether or not you're a male or a female, you are going towards relationships that are not for you, or you're attracting people that are not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we attract things that we are. And so sometimes we have to take the opportunity to look inside to say, okay, am I dealing with low self-esteem issues? Am I dealing with these things? And is this why I'm attracting certain people?
That's
So sometimes that's a great opportunity to take a step back to look inside and do some self-evaluation. And whether or not it's for a year or it's for 6 months or 8 months, it's a good time to get to know yourself and heal from those things that may be attracting those negative vibes.
That's powerful right there, girl. That's
excellent.
powerful.
Yes, that was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you done any book signings?
I have not because I released during COVID. So I am planning to do some book signings coming up this year since things are opening back up and I feel more comfortable about being close to people. So I am planning a few book signings, which I'll be posting on my Facebook page.
Okay.
Awesome. And just a comment, she said that was an advice to someone jaded by love.
Thank you.
So, do we have any other questions from our audience? I know that the queue is kind of lagging here, so I don't want to miss anyone. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your words of wisdom.
Thank you.
You have really spoken a lot out that can be received and used, especially looking at yourself and loving yourself, because as you stated, a lot of times we find ourselves in relationships because we don't know how to love ourselves. So we don't know what we deserve. We don't know, if we don't respect ourselves, we don't know what to expect or accept from others. So very powerful. So before we close, if you have one thing you wanted to leave with our viewing audience, what is one thing you would share with our viewing audience?
If you are single, learn to enjoy it. Find something that you can enjoy during this season. Whether or not it's getting to know yourself, whether or not it's taking vacations, whether or not it's learning a new hobby, venturing out into that new career that you always wanted to do something that's going to motivate and benefit and make you happy.
Love it, love it. And share with our viewing audience one more time where you can be contacted and also where your book can be purchased.
Okay. So I am on Instagram. My Instagram name is Dr. B period B underscore empowers. And my book can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, and www.womenlovingwomenllc.com for a signed copy.
It has been a pleasure speaking with you, Brittany. Look, 30 and single. I think I might have to write a book 50 and single. If something don't happen soon, but that's okay.
There are no age requirements. This book is for everybody.
Again, we have really enjoyed you. You have given out so many tokens of treasure that everyone can take with them, be it female or male. We want to thank you again for joining us on this evening, Miss Brittany Hill.
Thank you so much for
Well, I'm gonna go
having me.
ahead. Look, you know me. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, Dr. Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You have a good evening. Join
Thank
us
you
this
too.
time next week, same place, same time, as we chatted up with author Shaniqua Davis. She's the author of Breaking Your Barriers. Thank you for joining us this evening. And remember, reading gives us someplace to go when we have to stay where we are. Stay safe, stay put, and stay blessed.